This episode is brought to you by our wonderful sponsors at Galaxy Finance. Call them on 1300 91 7740. The great ones, they're different. They really are. Not better, just different. Sure, there's a physical power, a mental strength, a complex but resolute constitution too. There's a whole lot more than just the measurables. That's something else, that intangible. It separates us from them. Welcome to the Legends series on Andy Raymond Unfiltered. A maroon, a kangaroo, a premiership winner. That's on the field. There's so much more to this story than just metres and tackles. But who is Matt Scott?
Well, look, I'm not really sure, to be honest. Mate, I'm pretty much a quiet. I'd like to think humble, down-to-earth guy, family man. That's about it.
Ilfracombe, in the latest census, it topped 269 people, and whilst Townsville may not be the biggest of cities, it is by comparison. As a young man, how was that move and change? Because it's not a career change, it's a life change.
Yeah, it was. I think that census is a bit generous, to be honest. I don't think there's ever been that many people in Ilfracombe. Maybe when the grey nomads are coming through.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a big change. Townsville was the big smoke for me. So I had a year in away at boarding school in Yeppoon to that sort of paved the way for me to move out of home a little bit. And I think going from there to up here softened the blow a little bit. But, still a big move for a boy from Ilfracombe.
Away from training, what was your biggest challenge in moving?
Mate, I'm probably a bit of a shy sort of bloke, a bit of an introvert. So I guess just I was lucky enough to have a couple of guys that I'd known. I moved up here with a mate from school. Jacob Lillyman was in the young guns at that stage, and got to be pretty good friends with him quickly. So I guess it was just getting that off-field friendships and relationships sorted, but just mate, moving out of home, I had no idea about most anything about living and taking care of myself. All the fun stuff that comes with getting employed for the first time, like tax returns and buying a car and things like that. So it was probably something that growing up in the bush, you don't learn about those things too much, and it took a little bit of getting used to.
You debuted at age 18, that was 2004. Most players have wonderful memories of their debut. You don't. What's your memory of that game?
Oh, look, it's still a good memory.
Yeah.
Playing Parramatta, not much about it, to be honest, but I do still remember doing my knee. It says on Wikipedia that I broke my leg, so that sounds a lot better than tearing a medial ligament, that's for sure. So I remember doing that, and it was quite late in the year, so it just meant that I didn't play again that year.
Yeah.
So that was pretty hard to take.
I bet.
Still had some good memories. I think Nathan Hindmarsh was pretty good back then, so coming up against him, Vella, was it?
Mick Vella.
Mick Vella, in the front row. So,
and he would have been at the top of his game about then.
He was playing well, and Parra were going pretty well, so it was a good challenge for me. And getting injured obviously is a bit of a downer.
Did you felt as though you belonged straight away? Did you feel as though you were first grader, or did you feel as though you were the kid in with the men?
No, I felt pretty comfortable, to be honest. Probably didn't look that way if you watch the game, but I do remember early in my career feeling pretty comfortable in first grade. Not saying that I killed it straight away, but I felt comfortable. We had a good group of old heads around that made me feel comfortable and confident, and I felt like I could certainly have settled in pretty quickly.
I think it's one of the things that the game and maybe professional sport lacks in 2020. You just said I had a heap of older blokes with me to support me, to guide me, and to kick my ass when I needed it. Doesn't happen in 2020, and I think sport and the game's poorer for it. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so. Look, the generations have changed.
Yeah.
Kids have changed coming through. Leadership styles have changed. So the way that the old guys led and coaches coached when I was coming through is definitely different. And you can't I say you can't. You probably can, but I don't think it's as easy to have that hard-headed and hard-nosed approach.
You can't say some of those things, and you can't do some of those things.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And guys take things differently. So,
yeah.
I found it great. Paul Bowman, Paul Rahihi, Travis Norton, guys like that when I was coming through. They weren't. You hear some stories back in the day about especially the Broncos system with Shane Webke and guys like that who would make it very tough for young guys coming through.
Yeah, they'd rip you a new one.
Yeah, well, we didn't so much as have that, but you certainly knew exactly where you stood and you knew exactly what you had to do to play first grade, and I don't think that that's the case anymore.
In 2006, you were a regular in the top grade. What a year. After just 14 first grade games, you earned your first Queensland jersey. How did that feel?
Yeah, look, it was pretty incredible. Hard to believe looking back on it, and it was certainly hard to believe at the time. I'd been told that I was close, and I sort of thought it was a bit of a joke the first time I heard it. I thought it was the boys stitching me up.
Yeah.
But, I remember getting the call and being pretty excited, going down into camp, being around guys like Petro and Lockie. The team back then was obviously pretty handy.
Yes.
They were just coming off 3 series losses. Mal took over as coach, brought in a lot of the old boys into camp, and guys like Choppy Close, Wally was around, Artie, legends of the game.
Yeah.
So it was a pretty big occasion.
Want to know what's coming up on the Legends series? Stalk us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at @TheAndyRaymond. It's amazing to look back, and that was only 2006, but a lot of people were questioning Origin. New South Wales had won 3 in a row. They were dominating, and people were actually saying, Origin could be dead. This might be the end of it if it keeps going.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember the some of the media surrounding the game and the state of Origin. It's incredible to look back on what's happened since and what's happened to State of Origin. Over the last 14 years, it's pretty crazy to have been a part of that too.
Now the story of breaking a kid's heart. You debuted, you lost by 1, 17-16. Then you were dropped. Tough one to take?
Yeah, mate, that was tough.
Yeah.
Neil Henry told me, actually, we were in the pool doing some recovery on a Sunday, and he came over and broke the news to me. It was tough. I thought I'd done my job at that stage. And then we lost by 1 point. Brett Finch got called into the side late and kicked a field goal, a little prick.
Yes.
Look, I remember I had a conversation with Mal leading into the game, and he talked to me about starting me on the bench, considering how, I guess, inexperienced I was. But he sort of left it up to me, and I think pride kicked in, and I thought about the opportunity to run out with Petro and Pricey, and to start. And I was starting in, I guess you could call it lock. I think I had number 12 on my back, so it's a bit different, but I was playing the same role. And I said to him, look, I think I can start, and I'd like that opportunity, and he backed me. But looking back on it, I sort of do think that had I started off the bench, I might have. The game's a little bit slower. I probably could have found my feet a bit easier. I might not have got dropped, but I'll never regret the way things happened. I think it helped me as a player. I think it made me want to make it back into that Origin arena even more and prove myself. So, credit to Mal and how he handled it. I think he rang me that week and just said, mate, I haven't played my last game for Queensland. Still very much in his plans, and just keep playing well. And
was that what you needed to hear?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And it would have been very easy for him not to have that conversation. Yep. 20-year-old that had played 14 NRL games. He didn't have to make that phone call, but he did. And they called me into camp for Game 3 as 18th man, and again had the same conversation. I remember talking to Box Walters about it, and a few of the other staff members, and they were all just told me that I was well and truly in their plans moving forward, and they gave me a lot of confidence.
Because of injury and a pretty decent old side and some wonderful front rowers, you didn't return until 2009. Is this when you started to feel like you actually belonged in this elite company?
Yeah, definitely. We lost that game too. Actually, it was Game 3, 2009. Yep. We lost that game, and there was a bit of crap involved. There was a bit of a blue at the end, and we'd had a terrible prep for it. There was a few guys that probably didn't do the right thing that week because we'd had the series wrapped up, took it a bit easy, and obviously my first game back, I just wanted to do everything right, and then I remember there was maybe it was maybe Dave Shillington and I think that was the game. We roomed together and we just made sure we were preparing for an Origin game, doing everything right, and made sure that I wasn't going to get dropped again, and whatever happened in the game that I'd put myself in a position where I played again the next year. And even though we lost, I managed to do that, and Mel spoke to me about that. And, they recognised it. So probably not that game, but the next year, 2010, was when I felt like I'd sort of established myself as an Origin player. 2010
was also your Test debut year. Is one more memorable than the other, Origin debut, Test debut? Does one mean more?
Oh, I don't think it does. It doesn't mean more. Origin's definitely probably a bigger spectacle. It feels like there's more.
That's actually a pretty good way of putting it.
There's more that goes around the game. Yep. There's more build-up. There's probably a bit more feeling to it.
Yep.
But I remember pulling the first Aussie jersey on, and there's just a huge sense of pride in wearing the green and gold, and I'll never say that it didn't mean as much as an Origin jersey.
Yep. Your evolution continued just a couple of months later. You were named as co-captain for the North Queensland Cowboys, for a North Queensland boy. Jonathan Thurston, who back then was still naughty little Johnny, was your co-captain. Two very different people, two very different players, two different personalities. What did that mean to you?
It was such an honour. Huge amount of pride. Also, it was tough. John had his troubles. Obviously, he was still Jonathan Thurston already at that stage. So it was a bit awkward to start with. On my behalf, I can't speak for him, but it worked. Like you said, I think it's the different personalities. We're completely opposite in a lot of regards, but it seemed to be what the Cowboys needed at the time, and we worked well together.
How did extra responsibility sit with you as a co-captain? Would you consider yourself at this time in your life as a natural leader?
Oh, I don't think so. At the same time, I tried not to change too much.
Yep.
Graham Murray, he sort of introduced me into the leadership group quite early.
Yeah.
And then Neil after that. Probably because I was a bit of a serious sort of player at times. Well, certainly when I was training or playing.
Yep.
So I'd had a little bit of a taste of that sort of leadership and learnt off a few guys that were I thought were really good at it.
Yep.
So I tried not to change what I did too much. It did add a bit more pressure, but I'd always put pressure on myself to perform on the field anyway. So really, I just had to keep doing that.
I've enjoyed your career since day one. From where I sat, I thought that added responsibility, or whatever you'd like to term it, I thought it seemed to agree with you, and I thought actually your footy went to the next level from that point. Is that a fair call?
Yeah, probably. And I don't know whether it was because of the added responsibility or was natural progression.
Yep.
I hit that stage, 2010, 25, which is a good age for a front rower.
Yeah.
I do think it helped. It's something that was tough for me at times to do, to be the co-captain, to take that responsibility, being a sort of introverted guy, but I always felt comfortable talking up at training. I always felt comfortable talking in front of the team. It's just something that I enjoyed doing it. I felt like I could contribute to what we did as a team, so I felt comfortable in that role.
You're listening to Andy Raymond Unfiltered. Check out the website andyraymondunfiltered.com.au. You showed amazing resilience, maturity and class through 2012 when, in the middle of Origin, your dear mum passed after a long battle. Does an event like this for a young man and an elite young athlete add perspective to what's happening around them?
Yeah, definitely. It can't help but change you. I still get emotional talking about it. I don't talk about it too often. No. It was, and obviously the timing leading into an Origin game was difficult. I remember talking to Mal about it, and he was obviously great. Just he said, take as much time as I need. Come into camp whenever you want. I hit a stage where I was at home, and I felt like I needed to get away.
Almost for your benefit, you need to clear your head.
Clear my head, get out of. It was great to be home and spend time with my the rest of my family. Yep. But I hit a stage where I needed to get away from all that and go and get ready for a State of Origin game. And I just still remember being so nervous going into camp about. I don't like people making a big deal about me, so I knew when I go into camp, obviously something big's happened, and people are going to want to talk about that. But
you wanted nothing to do with it.
I didn't, but it was the best thing for me. Going into camp, and I'd already been with that group for a few years, and it was like a second family at that stage, and getting a bit emotional talking about it. And it was the best thing for me. That the guys were great. Couldn't do enough for me, but at the same time gave me space and time, and we just got into preparing for an Origin match, and it took my mind off what had happened, and it was the best thing I could have done.
In situations like this and with stories like this, sport and sporting teams can be the most wonderful of places. Can't they?
Definitely.
That's awesome.
Yeah, look, it would have been a lot harder if I didn't have teammates around me and rugby league to go back to get away from that. I don't think there's anything quite like the relationship you have with your teammates, and at that stage, certainly with that Origin team, we were so close. It was like a family. It was definitely helped.
The Origin dominance continued. At the time, did you guys know or realise just how fucking good this football side was, or don't you think like that in the present?
Oh, we didn't think like that. We had a lot of confidence in our ability. There's no doubt about that. But we never took it for granted. If we had taken it for granted, it would have been the end of that stretch for us, I think. We had really good leaders, guys like Lockie, Smithy, who kept the team really grounded. Petro, Pricey, and guys like that. There was never a thought that we were not going to lose. And to be honest, the media helped that. Every year, we'd read about how good the New South Wales team was and how good these front rowers were, and they were going to bash us, and we were getting old and slow. That really helped to fuel the fire and keep us at a point where we never thought we couldn't get better. So every year we'd go in and we'd say to ourselves, we need to be better again this year to win another series.
I've heard the term in speaking to a few players from that era. Guys that should have had egos left them at the door. There was just no place for an ego or an out-of-control personality in a maroon camp. Is that right?
Yeah, it's very accurate. Yeah, wow. There was no egos. Not no egos, but guys with egos that came into that group pretty quickly learnt they had to temper them a little bit to stay in the group.
What's your fondest Origin memory? I know that's a really difficult question in trying to narrow it down to a moment, but is there one that stands out above the rest?
That's a tough question. I think was it 2010, the clean sweep? I think it was, and I think that that was probably one of the best series to be a part of, and to be able to achieve that when it's so hard to do, coming off the back of the year before where we'd let that chance go, to be able to turn it around and do it the year after. I think we had a bus ride down Caxton Street after we'd done it, and mate, it's so hard to pinpoint specific times. There's a couple of games where individually I thought I played really well, and they're always good memories. But for me, it was just such a good ride to be a part of. It feels like 10 years sort of just meld into one.
It was around this time back in Clubland, it sort of started here, and seemingly year after year that the Cowboys would make the finals only to be robbed by a controversial refereeing decision. At the time, did it feel like it was the world against North Queensland and you just weren't destined to play a GF?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, like you said, there was a few years in a row there where it felt like it was history repeating, and it felt like it didn't matter how good we played or what we did, we were up against it.
Yeah. Does conspiracy theories come into it? Like did you have a few beers with the teammates and all of a sudden it's, the NRL in Sydney don't want us in there?
No, I can't remember having those conversations.
It might be the wingers.
Yeah, probably. Or I could have had a few too many beers. And, no, look, it wasn't that. But it certainly felt like that. It was so frustrating. It's going to test my memory now. But I just remember sitting in the sheds after those losses and
the hand of Jamie Lyon.
Maybe that was it. And just the frustration, and especially after you've left every bit of energy out on the field, and then to feel you felt like it was only that decision that stopped you. And something that I've got to credit Greeny for when he came in was he was really quick to put that type of thought to bed.
Yep.
And say we can't have the mindset of blaming decisions for losses. His thought was always that if you put yourself into a position where one decision is going to cost you the game, then it's not the fault of the decision. It's our fault as players. And
in boxing terms, you want to go in for the knockout. You don't want to leave it to the judges.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. So that was a real key to turning around us as a club in 2014 and 15 in particular.
Any elite athlete will tell you it takes more than just being physically fit to be at your best. And our friends at Galaxy Finance can have you at the top of your financial game. From home loans to investments and self-managed super funds, they provide complete solutions. Call Galaxy Finance on 1300 91 7740 and mention you heard it on Andy Raymond Unfiltered to get an obligation-free chat to see how Galaxy Finance can assist you. You just mentioned 15. You got a smile on your face already. Does life get better winning a grand final, winning it against who you did, and winning it how you did? Creating history.
Yeah, look, it definitely gets better because no one can take it off you. It's something that we did, and we'll be able to remember it for forever, those type of moments. It gets better. It gets harder, though. A lot more pressure on us as a footy team. But, yeah, to win a grand final for the Cowboys, the first grand final, against the Broncos in the way the game went was, it's probably something that you couldn't have written a better script for it.
What are your recollections of that game and those final few minutes as we sit here some 5 years on?
Fatigue.
Just out on your feet.
Yeah, the last few minutes and fatigue, but a sense of belief that if we kept trying, we would win the game because we'd been in that position so many times in that year where we were down and out and we'd come back and win games and JT would ice a field goal or someone would score on the death. So we had that sense of belief and but at the same time I was wrecked. I remember just every carry was just like put your head down and run and try and play the ball as quick as you can and something good would happen.
Morgan and felt that moment to draw the game on the buzzer will remain in rugby league folklore and history forever.
Yeah, it will. Such a great play. He had a great year that year, Morgan, and he just had a really simple role where if he saw an opportunity down that right side and guys would mark up against Jono, obviously, on the left. So anytime that he had a wide four, which means they play the balls close to the posts, but they still put four defenders there, he'd take it, and he was just so hard to stop because he's fast, he's strong, and he's got good skills. So funny though, not my best time as a captain in the captain's run of that week. He's talking to me about so his left arm carry must be, and he's talked about when he goes down that side, should he change it to his right, and so he can get the ball away. If the winger jams, he can still get the ball to Felty. And I remember saying to him, mate, you've been killing it all year. Don't change what's working. So I'm glad he didn't listen to me because he put the ball in the right. Obviously, the rest is history.
So the scores are locked. Jonathan Thurston, you'd rather no one else in the game to be kicking for your life and to kicking for the grand final, has got an attempt from the sideline. Where are you and the team? Is there talk? Is there silence? Could you watch? Could you not watch?
Oh, definitely watch. So we weren't too far away. Tried to keep everyone in a tight huddle. The chat was, he's going to kick this, but if he doesn't, we've done this before. We've been in this position so many times this year. We know what we have to do. If he doesn't get the kick, we regroup. I remember talking to the guys about making sure we picked Jono up when he came back if he missed it. Because he's so emotional and he would be blaming himself for not getting the kick, but we needed him in those last few minutes to win the game. So that was sort of what I was saying, stay confident, be positive, keep him up and we'll win it. But don't worry because he's going to get this kick. And then obviously he kicks it off the boot. It looked good. So I sort of started running towards him and about halfway there it hits the post. Couldn't really believe it. But, as you said, if you had anyone kicking that kick for your life, you'd still take him.
The field goal and how it happened, amazing and so well executed. I mean, professional to the degree?
Apart from it coming off his shin, it was it was pretty good. Oh, look, to get a start like that,
Yeah.
Obviously felt his kickoffs when he nails them. They're a huge advantage because they go so high, they're so hard to catch. Obviously, he's got to nail them because we've seen a few sail over the sideline.
That's right.
But he nailed that, and that was nearly just as important as Jono's kick because it gave us field position straight away. A couple of carries later, Big Jimmy Tamia got a quick play of the ball, which he was so good at doing, and Jono iced it.
You're listening to Andy Raymond Unfiltered, the Legends series. We have corporate and private sponsorship packages available. You set the terms. For further information on how you can become part of the team, go to the website andyraymondunfiltered.com.au and hit the sponsorship tab. One grand final and one win to here. You'd finish your career 1 win, 1 loss. In 2017, despite injury, the club just went on a magical run. It was unexpected, but confidence is an amazing thing. When you have it, you're indestructible and seemingly unbeatable, and that's what the Cowboys looked like at the back end of that year.
Yeah, look, we were so lucky. It was such a disruptive year. Obviously, Jono and I, long-term injuries and everything else that had happened, and I remember the last game of the year, I think it was maybe watching Dragons play the Bulldogs or something like that, and I think however it went, Dragons were supposed to win, and then we'd miss the 8.
That's right, yeah.
Bulldogs won, or vice versa, or whatever it was, and all of a sudden we scrape into 8th position, and I remember having meetings that week leading into the first game, and it was sort of like all bets were off then. That was the chance we needed. The guys just went in with very simple game plans and a bit of more of a carefree attitude, which we always play better, the less sometimes with the Cowboys.
It's less structure.
Yeah, the less structure and the less, we'd get 30 points down and then sort of start playing footy. And that's a bit of what we've been like. And so that was the sort of mindset going into it, was we got nothing to lose. Let's just play some footy, and Morgo and Jace in particular were just unstoppable.
2017, a rebuilding Newcastle came knocking. How close were you to leaving North Queensland? Because reportedly, and we don't always trust the media, but reportedly the contract was almost impossible to refuse.
Yeah, it was very hard to refuse, and I was very close to going down there. I like Newcastle as a city.
Yep.
I'd been there a couple of times. I was very close, and it was such a hard decision to leave. Obviously, I'd been here my whole career, but at that stage of life, you've got to start thinking about money and future,
absolutely,
and stuff like that. So it was hard. Newcastle, it was offering 3 years. I had 2 years at the Cowboys, so it was more money, more years. Not a terrible place to live, obviously. So it was close to happening. I'd actually decided to stay just before I did my knee, tore my ACL. Early in 2017, so I'd actually made the decision to stay.
That you were staying regardless.
Yeah, regardless, and then did my knee, and that definitely made the decision easier, because it would have been really hard to have been my last game for the Cowboys. So I'm glad, obviously, with the way it worked out.
With the benefit of hindsight now, being a one-club man, how much does that now mean to you? Or do we, on the other side of the fence, overread something like that?
Yeah, it's a funny one. It's hard to answer. I love being a one-club player. And obviously I love North Queensland, Townsville, Cowboys. But once you're finished,
you're finished.
Finished, mate.
Yeah.
You know, so you don't, especially with COVID at the moment. You know, I've had very little to do with the club and haven't been able to really stay in touch with the guys much. And so really, I don't feel like it would have changed too much going. You know, it's great to be able to say I just played for the Cowboys, but when you retire, you know, there's a lot of talk about loyalty and stuff like this, and you should stay for the club. That I think when you're finished, you know, none of that really matters too much, to be honest.
August 18, 2019, your world as you knew it came to a shuddering halt. You suffered a stroke, and I know as an ex-front rower you're going to say it was only minor. It's still a stroke, Matty. What happened? Can you run us through the timeline here?
Yeah, so we played Newcastle as it was, pretty poorly. Didn't play well, but we had a few of the sponsors and members down to watch us play. So we'd gone out for dinner after, and we'd had a few drinks and had dinner. You know, got home at a half decent hour. I remember getting home. We got a pie on the way back. Yeah. Me and Scotty Bolton stayed up and watched a bit of cricket. Fell asleep and woke up early. You know, probably an hour before I had my alarm set. I don't know what woke me up, and sort of jumped out of bed, and I felt pretty hungover. I thought I was really hungover, and I thought I didn't drink enough to feel like this. So I had a shower, chucked some boardies on, and I went down to the beach for a swim. And as I'm walking down to the beach, I couldn't walk straight, which, you know, that's the first key probably. Yeah. But it wasn't bad enough that I really thought something was wrong here. I just thought, geez, that's odd. I must really be hungover. And went for a swim on my own in Newcastle. Went up to a cafe on the beach and had a coffee and breakfast. You know, trying to get this hangover sorted. Yeah, nothing was working. Went up to the room and threw up. I'd never throw up. I've been in a few states over the years, and it's not something I really do. Threw up. I thought, geez, that's weird. So anyway, we got dressed, packed my bag, jumped on the bus, and you haven't said anything to anyone at this stage? No, Bolts knew that I was a bit. He was sort of laughing because he doesn't. He knows that I don't really get hungover, so he sort of thought it was a bit odd, but didn't think anything of it. And then I sit up at the front of the bus, and Jono's behind me. Josh Hannay's across from me, actually. And we start moving, and I was just going to throw up again. So I couldn't stop myself, grabbed a bag out of my bag and started throwing up. And I threw up all the way to the hospital. And, a few of the boys and Josh were laughing at me, thinking, geez, he's hungover here. Got to the airport, nothing changed. I was nauseous, dizzy, the room was spinning. Spoke to the doc. Doc didn't really know what was wrong. He thought I might have taken something accidentally, or I was on some painkillers at the time too, because I was playing with a dislocated shoulder. So he was like, "Did you take too many painkillers?" And is it so no one really knew. Got on the plane and pretty much threw up all the way to Brisbane. Might have passed out for a little bit. Remember getting up to walk off the plane, and I just was bumping into the seats the whole way down, and Scotty Bolton's walking behind me, holding me by the backpack to keep me upright. Got off the plane and couldn't walk, so they had to get a wheelchair. No one knew what was happening. Got an ambulance to emergency at a hospital I can't remember in Brisbane. Went through the same thing, the doctor looking over me. No one sort of knew what was wrong. I couldn't stop throwing up. I couldn't open my eyes because I was so dizzy and sick. And the doc there thought I'd taken some drugs, or he's just asking me. So got all the tests done. Nothing came back. It wasn't until the next day I went and had an MRI on my brain, and they found the spot where I'd had a stroke.
If you're enjoying Andy Raymond Unfiltered, the Legend series, we'd love for you to go to Apple, Spotify, or wherever you're listening and subscribe to the podcast and give us a 5-star rating and review. Best Weekly Review wins an unfiltered trucker's hat. When did the alarm bells start ringing? Do you recall?
Yeah, I guess then. It didn't really ring. It was just sort of, right, it's happened. Can't do anything about it. What do we have to do now? I'm not dead.
Yeah.
I guess the advantage was I got some, because I was already in the hospital, I got some pretty quick treatment. Saw the neuro pretty soon after they'd found the stroke. He was pretty confident. The words I remember was, it was a small stroke in a very bad spot. So he said, the good part is, because of the size of it, you should recover. Mostly. He said, you will notice the difference. He said, most people looking at you won't. So I was pretty confident then that, it was just like another injury. I had to do my rehab, look after myself, try and get better.
2 weeks in hospital, then what?
Yeah, 2 weeks in hospital, then home. But it was just rehab. The thing about a stroke is you've got to do, small things, very regularly.
Yep.
First step was sort of learning to walk again in hospital. My balance was so far off, and my eyesight was gone. I couldn't really see that well. I had double vision. So trying to sort of learn to walk again was the first one. Rehab, I guess. Rehab every day.
Were you nervous about the present and looking to the future? The family, were they nervous? Or were you able to keep a clean thought process throughout this?
Oh, I could. Based on what I'd been through in my career already.
Yep.
And I just treated it like another injury. So I'd played with a fair few injuries over the years, had a lot of surgery, and it was always about the process. Don't think about the outcome so much.
Yep.
Get the process right. What's my rehab going to look like? What do I need to do to get better?
How do you convince the wife that that's how you're thinking and there's no need to panic?
Oh, look, I just tried to stay calm and try and deal with it, very level-headed, and I think that frustrated her at times, but it kept her relatively calm. It was probably harder on her than it was on me. She didn't know what was going on. She got a phone call off the doc a day later saying, he's had a stroke, you're going to have to come down. So 2 kids and 1 on the way, and you get that phone call. It's
tough, isn't it?
Yep.
How are you now? Any ill effects? Back to normality? Close to?
Close to normal. I think I'm probably as good as I'm going to get. I still have a loss of feeling on my left side. Have trouble distinguishing hot and cold and sharp and blunt, which it was a good party trick at first. I could not good.
You front rowers are different.
It has come back. So if something's really hot or really cold, I can work it out.
Yep.
I still get caught up trying to wait for the shower to warm up with my left hand, and thinking the water's not getting hotter. Things like that. The fatigue gets me, and it was a big factor that Neuro spoke about. And I sort of didn't really know what he was talking about, but for someone who was playing NRL 12 months ago to now, it's just hard to do things like I used to. And I still try and go and do a training session that I used to do, and I just have so much trouble with it. And I'll train for a couple of weeks and get fit again, and then then I'll sort of just lose it. Have to rest, and things like that are just hard to get used to.
Frustrating, is it?
Oh, incredibly frustrating.
Yep. How do you deal with that? What's your process there?
Go back to the process, like I said. Start again. Try and not let it frustrate me too much. Saying that, I've had my moments over the months, but try and just go back to the process. Go back and realise you can't do what you used to be able to do.
What do you need to be careful of or mindful of to reduce the risk as you move forward? Because you're still only a young man.
Yeah, look, well, we don't know what caused it, mate, so I don't know how to reduce the risk. I'm supposed to be on low-dose aspirin, but I haven't taken that for about 3 months. But apart from that, it's hard. I guess just try and lead a healthy lifestyle, but I was doing that when I had it. So, obviously, there's things like anti-inflams and pain. Anti-inflams are the main one, so I obviously don't take them anymore because there has been some studies done that show that they can cause a stroke, but again, they don't know. So I don't take them anymore. Obviously, don't take as many painkillers as I used to. Apart from that, just try and lead a healthy, balanced lifestyle. Apart from the frustration, how is retirement and what are you up to? Oh, look, retirement's really good. You always say when you're done. And I always thought, I'm never going to be done. I don't want to retire, but keep playing forever. But I certainly do, and I miss certain things about the game, but I don't really miss playing the game, and I enjoy having weekends free to spend with the family and friends. Started a construction business with my brother that's based out west, which it's great for sort of getting me back in touch with my family, but also where I was from. So I don't go out there too much, but it still takes me back out there and it keeps me involved, which is good. Obviously still involved with the club in a commercial capacity, which has been difficult to do this year. And working with Horn and Bird Energy, just helping them sell some commercial sort of solar packages, which it's pretty interesting. I admire your honesty and also your simplicity. You once described yourself as a chubby, freckled kid from Ilfracombe. Well, that kid's done all right. Matty Scott, you, sir, are a legend. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Legends series. Throughout the month of September, we're dropping a new episode every third day. Be sure to subscribe to the Andy Raymond Unfiltered podcast wherever you're listening, and to ensure you don't miss any news on what's coming up, follow one of our social media pages at The Andy Raymond. Come back soon, legends.